Retcons are the dirty little secret that saved comics. While fans love to complain about them, the truth is that some of the most beloved characters and storylines you know today only exist because a writer had the guts to say, actually, that thing you thought happened? It didn't happen that way. From bringing dead characters back to life, to completely rewriting origins, to erasing decades of continuity, retcons have shaped the comic landscape more than any other storytelling device. Today, we're diving deep into the 10 best retcons in comic history. And by best, I mean the ones that didn't just change a story, they fundamentally improved their characters and universes in ways that stuck around for decades. These are the retcons that made comics better. Let's start with one that completely redefined what a character could be. When Alan Moore took over Swamp Thing, the character was just Alec Holland, a scientist who got transformed into a plant monster. Pretty standard stuff for the time. But Moore dropped a bombshell in issue number 21. Swamp Thing was never Alec Holland at all. The retcon revealed that Holland died in that explosion, and the Swamp Thing was actually sentient plant matter that absorbed Holland's consciousness and memories, thinking it was human. This wasn't just changing a backstory, it was an existential horror that transformed Swamp Thing from a B-list monster into one of DC's most philosophically complex characters. Moore didn't erase the past, he recontextualized it. Every previous Swamp Thing story still happened, but now they had new meaning. The character's struggle to regain his humanity became tragic because there was no humanity to regain. This opened up storylines about identity, consciousness, and what it means to be human that are still being explored today. Here's something that might surprise newer fans. Magneto wasn't always a Holocaust survivor. For his first 18 years of publication, he was just a generic megalomaniac villain. Then Chris Claremont dropped Uncanny X-Men number 150, and everything changed. In a single issue, Claremont revealed that Magneto was a Jewish Holocaust survivor named Max Eisenhardt. Suddenly, his hatred of humanity wasn't just villainy, it was trauma. His determination to protect mutants at any cost came from watching his people get systematically exterminated while the world stood by. This retcon transformed Magneto from a two-dimensional bad guy into one of comics' most complex characters. His conflict with Xavier became philosophical rather than just good versus evil. One who believed in peace despite everything, one who refused to let history repeat itself. It added layers that writers are still mining today, making every Magneto story richer. The genius here was timing. By 1981, the X-Men had evolved into a metaphor for civil rights and persecution. Magneto needed to evolve too, and this retcon didn't just update him, it made him essential to the book's themes. After Crisis on Infinite Earths eliminated the multiverse in 1985, DC spent 20 years with just one Earth. But here's the thing, that simplification created more problems than it solved. Wonder Woman's origin kept changing. Hawkman's history was a complete mess. Power Girl's backstory made no sense. Enter Infinite Crisis. This event didn't just bring back the multiverse. It acknowledged that getting rid of it was a mistake. The story literally had Alexander Luthor Jr. trying to create a perfect Earth because the single Earth was so flawed. Meta? Absolutely. But it worked. The retcon established 52 distinct Earths, each with its own variations. Earth 2 had the Justice Society. Earth 3 had the Crime Syndicate. Earth 10 had Nazi versions of heroes. This wasn't just nostalgia, it was practical. Writers could now tell Elseworld stories that counted. They could have multiple versions of characters without contradicting continuity. What's brilliant is how DC learned from their mistake. Instead of infinite Earths that nobody could track, they created a finite number with defined characteristics. It gave structure to the chaos while keeping creative possibilities open. Today's DC cosmology, with its dark multiverse and beyond, all stems from admitting that erasing the multiverse was wrong. For 40 years, there was one death in Marvel that was sacred: Bucky Barnes. The saying went, nobody stays dead except Bucky, Jason Todd, and Uncle Ben. Ed Brubaker looked at that rule and said, watch me. Captain America #1, 2005, revealed that Bucky didn't die in that plane explosion. The Soviets found him, gave him a cybernetic arm, and turned him into the Winter Soldier, a brainwashed assassin kept in cryogenic storage between missions. He'd been operating in the shadows for decades, a ghost story in the intelligence community. This should have been terrible. Bringing back Bucky violated one of Marvel's fundamental rules. But Brubaker made it work by not undoing the impact of Bucky's death. Steve Rogers still carried that guilt for decades. The death still shaped who Captain America was. The resurrection added to that weight rather than diminishing it. The Winter Soldier wasn't just alive. He was a victim, a weapon, a man trying to atone for crimes he was forced to commit. It created one of Marvel's best redemption arcs and gave us a character complex enough to eventually become Captain America himself. The fact that the MCU built an entire phase around this retcon shows how successful it was. When Hal Jordan went insane and became Parallax in 1994, destroying the Green Lantern Corps and trying to remake reality, fans were furious. DC had turned their greatest Green Lantern into a mass murderer. For a decade, this stood as one of comics' most controversial character assassinations. Then Jeff Johns came along with Green Lantern Rebirth and pulled off the impossible. The retcon Parallax wasn't just a name Hal chose, it was an ancient fear entity imprisoned in the central power battery. It had been subtly influencing Hal for years, and when Coast City was destroyed, it fully possessed him. This wasn't just hand-waving away Hal's crimes. The story acknowledged everything that happened: the destroyed core, the dead Guardians, Zero Hour, but reframed it. Hal was both guilty and innocent. He did those things, but under an influence nobody knew existed. It allowed for redemption without erasing consequences. Johns went deeper, revealing that the yellow impurity in Green Lantern rings, their historical weakness to yellow, was actually Parallax's influence. The fear entity had been corrupting the core from within for millennia. This turned a silly Silver Age weakness into cosmic horror mythology. The retcon revitalized the entire Green Lantern franchise. It brought Hal back as a hero while keeping Kyle Rayner relevant. It expanded the mythology with the emotional spectrum. Most importantly, it showed how a good retcon doesn't erase the past, it transforms it into something better. The Dark Phoenix saga is one of comics' greatest stories, but it created a massive problem. Jean Grey had committed genocide, killing billions of aliens. How could she ever be a hero again? The answer came in Fantastic Four number 286, and it changed everything. The retcon: Jean Grey never became Phoenix at all. When she was dying in that space shuttle, the Phoenix Force, a cosmic entity, responded to her psychic call. It created a duplicate body, absorbed her memories and personality, then placed the real Jean in a healing cocoon at the bottom of Jamaica Bay. Everything from X-Men number 101 to number 137? That was the Phoenix thinking it was Jean. This sounds like a cop-out, but John Byrne made it work by keeping the emotional weight. The X-Men still mourned their teammate. Scott still grieved his love. The Phoenix as Jean still sacrificed herself. The story's impact remained intact while creating new possibilities. What's fascinating is how this retcon grew. Initially just meant to bring Jean back, it transformed Phoenix into one of Marvel's most important cosmic forces. The entity became tied to creation and destruction, life and death. It created a mythology that spans the universe, from the M'Kraan crystal to the White-Hot Room. Later stories would complicate this. Was Jean the true Phoenix host? Was she always meant to bond with it? The questions keep evolving, but that's what makes a great retcon. It doesn't close doors, it opens them. We mentioned Infinite Crisis earlier, but we need to talk about the original. By 1985, DC's continuity was a nightmare. Multiple Earths, conflicting origins, characters meeting their own reboots. It was chaos. Crisis on Infinite Earths didn't just retcon a story, it retconned an entire multiverse. The plot was simple in concept, staggering in execution. The Anti-Monitor was destroying all realities. Heroes and villains from across the multiverse united to stop him. In the end, all remaining Earths merged into one. Decades of stories were erased, rewritten, or combined. This wasn't subtle. Characters literally remembered the multiverse dying. Psycho Pirate went insane from retaining memories of erased worlds. The story acknowledged it was changing everything while it happened. Meta-commentary at its finest. The impact was seismic. Superman's origin was streamlined. No more Superboy, no more dozens of Kryptonian survivors. Wonder Woman was rebooted entirely. The Justice Society was placed firmly in the past. Batman mostly stayed the same because his continuity actually made sense. What made this work was commitment. DC didn't have to it. They published Who's Who to establish new histories. They rebooted major characters with top creators. They treated it as a fresh start, not just a patch job. For better or worse, Crisis created the template for every major comic reboot since. For decades, Marvel Cosmic was built on a simple premise. The Kree were militaristic, but mostly noble. The Skrulls were shape-shifting invaders who couldn't be trusted. The retcon. The Kree-Skrull War's origin was completely different. The Skrulls were once peaceful, offering friendship and technology to other races. The Kree and the plant-like Katati competed for their favor. When the Katati won, the Kree slaughtered the Skrull delegation and stole their technology, beginning their galactic empire with genocide. The story revealed the Kree had been systematically erasing this history for millennia, programming it out of the supreme intelligence, destroying records, ensuring nobody knew their empire was built on betrayal. Even more devastating, they'd been doing the same to other aspects of their history, including erasing an entire period where they weren't warriors at all. This retcon recontextualized every Kree-Skrull story ever told. The Skrulls' paranoia and infiltration tactics? Trauma response from that first betrayal. The Kree's obsession with genetic purity? Compensation for their stolen origins. Secret invasion became tragedy instead of just villainy. What makes this brilliant is how it reflects real-world historical revisionism. The winners write history, and the Kree won. It added layers to decades of stories without invalidating them. Everything still happened, we just didn't know why. Black Widow debuted in 1964, which created a problem by the 2000s. How was she still young? The films dodged this by making her contemporary, but the comics went bigger. Ed Brubaker and others revealed that Natasha Romanoff was actually born in the 1920s. The retcon established that the Red Room didn't just train assassins, they enhanced them. Natasha received a variant of the super soldier serum that dramatically slowed her aging. She wasn't just trained by the Soviets, she was their attempt at creating their own Captain America. This connected to the Winter Soldier mythology beautifully. Natasha and Bucky had a relationship in the 1950s when he was training Red Room operatives. Neither remembered due to memory wipes, but their connection transcended programming. It added tragic romance to both characters' histories. But the implications went further. Natasha wasn't just a Cold War relic. She'd lived through World War II, Stalin's purges, the fall of the Soviet Union. Her cynicism and adaptability weren't just personality traits, they were survival mechanisms developed over decades. The retcon also explained her relationships with older heroes. She could connect with Captain America and Wolverine as peers, not just colleagues. It deepened her character without changing her present, adding weight to every interaction. The #1 spot goes to a retcon so perfect, it defined not just one character, but an entire corner of the Marvel Universe. When Barry Windsor-Smith created Weapon X, he revealed that Wolverine's adamantium skeleton wasn't just an experiment, it was part of something much bigger. Weapon X wasn't the project name, it was the Roman numeral 10. Wolverine was the 10th attempt at creating a super soldier. Weapon 1? Captain America himself. This single revelation connected decades of Marvel history into one horrifying program. Each iteration tried to recreate or improve upon Steve Rogers. Weapon 2 through 9 included various failures and partial successes. Weapon X was the first success since Rogers, but at the cost of the subject's humanity. The program continued through Greek letters after X, creating horrors like Weapon 12 and beyond. This retcon worked because it made sense of so much. Why were there so many attempts to recreate the super soldier serum? They were all connected. Why did Wolverine have memory problems? The program was designed to create weapons, not preserve people. Why adamantium? They'd moved beyond mere enhancement to transformation. It also opened storytelling doors that Marvel still walks through today. Every new weapon plus revelation adds to the mythology. The program's influence touches characters from Phantom X to Deadpool. It turned a single character's origin into a dark mirror of Marvel's heroic age. And there you have it, the 10 best retcons in comic history. These aren't just story changes, they're improvements that became fundamental to their characters and universes. They show that sometimes, looking backward is the best way to move forward. The lesson? Good retcons don't erase the past, they transform it. They add meaning to old stories while creating possibilities for new ones. They respect what came before while admitting it could be better. What's your favorite retcon? Did I miss any that changed comics forever? Let me know in the comments below. This is Geek Force. See you in the next one.